Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan, and I am here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Hello.
I'm doing really good. How are you? You didn't ask me how I was doing.
How are you today, Michael?
Wow. You know what? I guess
You don't hear what I say. You just hear what you think I'm going to say.
That's not good.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Well, my perception was that you were going to say,
yeah,
because that's what
Because I should.
Or maybe because we've been doing this for a while and you usually do, and so I'm conditioned.
Yeah, you're a creature of habit.
Yeah. But it is.
But I thought you were a trained observer. I thought you were quicker on the uptake than that.
Well, you would like to believe that because you would like to believe you trained me.
Yeah, well, I think
and that you did a good job.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that I did a good job. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, you did train me.
Yeah.
Yes, you would like to believe you did a good job.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I am very aware of when I do therapy with people is this idea of we all have our own perceptions, and that a lot of times those perceptions are different. But I think most people assume that everybody else in the world perceives things the same way they do.
And or that they should.
That they should, yes, absolutely. And so people get into a lot of times these arguments of, well, you know, this is how this happened, and you did this, and the other partner is like, well, that wasn't how I experienced it, and then the first partner is like, well, but yes, you did, and they're arguing about whether or not they had the same perceptual reality, not really what they're upset about.
I can't tell you how many times I remember my father saying to me, "Don't do what I said, do what I meant."
Mm-hmm. And you were supposed to know what he meant.
Oh, I was supposed to know what he meant. Absolutely. It was not safe for me not to know.
Well, even if what he meant was completely different from anything he had ever meant before, and if there was completely no way for you to know what he meant, you were still supposed to know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I was allowed to say yes, sir, or if I really wanted to, I could say yes, sir. Those were my options.
Or you could say, yes, sir.
Well, that too, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the more passionately that you delivered the yes, sir.
With enthusiasm.
Yeah. That was. So, did you ever try that, where you would like try and lull him into?
I did, and it caused a physical response that I didn't want to have repeated.
Oh,
yeah,
that wasn't good, huh? So he
sensed my sarcasm,
anticipate that, sense that you were.
And one of his more common phrases was, "Get that look off your face before I wipe it off your face."
Oh,
yeah.
Well, what a tough guy.
He was big old guy.
Well, he was he was bigger than you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that beating up a child is being tough.
Well, it proved his masculinity.
Yes. To him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so...
he often said to me, I would rather my child fear me than respect me. As a clinician, how do you respond to that?
That is a position of power and control that is fueled by very deep held insecurity.
That comforts me enormously to know that. Mm-hmm. But I think it was part of his generation's understanding of parenting, that's what men did.
So you didn't see it as him being horribly insecure?
Not at that point in my life.
Oh,
no.
but you see that now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you were saying that you didn't think that he really was.
He was a mixed bag.
Yeah.
As are we all.
Well, sure, we all are. But when clients come to us and they present this conundrum of, I have this perception and the significant other has this different perception, and they want to argue about whose perception is more valid, I get really frustrated.
Well, it's like the whole conversation around love languages. Mm-hmm. You know, I brought you flowers. Mm-hmm. You know, why aren't we okay? Mm-hmm. Flowers don't mean anything to me. You know, you didn't wash the dishes.
Exactly. I know.
Yeah.
I know. We both had that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously anybody who has done therapy with individuals, especially if you've done it with more than one individual simultaneously, has gotten to this point where one person has a perception, another person has a different perception, and they're arguing about who gets to be right.
Right.
And what do you say to that?
I say, would you rather be right or you want to have a good relationship? I mean, which is more important to you?
Yeah.
And sometimes they say being right.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, that's going to cost you this relationship. Well, I don't care. It's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's a choice you're entitled to make, but it
Right.
comes at a cost. So then we talk about emotional economics.
Mm-hmm.
Every choice you make costs something and pays something. Can you afford the cost of your choices?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she can't do that to me. Well, okay, you don't have to let her do that to you, but what does it cost if you end the relationship?
Mm-hmm.
You know, your children, your investments, your house, does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that important to be right?
Right.
And sometimes they say yes.
Do you ever challenge the statement, she can't do that to me?
Yeah.
Because what I say to people is, well, she absolutely can do that to you. The issue isn't whether she can, because you can't control her. You can only control you. So she absolutely can do that to you. Your only ability to control the situation is what is your response if she does that to you.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And then, so, you know, if we were going to put this in a more anecdotal kind of example, so people come to therapy, and a lot of times the issue is really over, for me at least, somebody's emotional needs aren't getting met. But the way that that gets expressed is through some kind of tangible physical behavior. So a wife who feels like that the husband is not meeting her emotional needs, so she isn't being put first in the relationship. Maybe he has, you know, kids from a previous relationship that he wants to pay more attention to, or he has a job that he is obsessed with, and she wants to say to him, look, you're not paying attention to me, and that's emotionally distressing to me. But what she says is, well, you know, you treat those kids better than you treat me.
Right.
And he says, well, don't come between me and my kids. And now they're arguing about this behavior, which is, you know, he feels like that he treats his children 100% appropriately. That's what he should do as a dad. She feels like that he's putting the kids before her, and that is an insult to her. But what she's not attending to or expressing is the hurt. This hurts my feelings because you're treating those kids in a way that makes it appear that you care more about them than you care about me.
Yeah, so then you try to teach them the formula, learning how to put your sentences in the formula, like working a math problem. When you, and you describe the behavior. Mm-hmm. I feel, you describe your feeling. Mm-hmm. The hard part is number 3, because why do I understand that I feel this way? And number 4 is what I need from you is, and number 5 is, and if I don't get it, this is what I'll do. For instance, an argument that frequently occurs, the wife says, you're driving too close to the car in front of you too fast, will you slow down? And the guy says, don't tell me how to drive. I haven't had an accident, I haven't had a speeding ticket, you don't know what you're talking about, leave me alone. And she doesn't know or isn't yet willing to say, but I'm afraid. Can you help me with that? And he has to learn how to hear that if that's what she says. But if it's a power struggle, it's over, you know, who's going to tell who how to do what.
Right.
Then, you know, I remember a conversation my wife and I had when we first got married. She had a full-time job, I had a full-time job. We were trying to manage how we're going to run the household. And I said, well, I'll mop the kitchen on Saturday. She's great. So I mopped the kitchen. She came in and said, oh no, this won't do. You have to mop this again. You didn't do it right. And I said, you don't have that option. You can mop it yourself.
Right.
You can live with the way I mop it.
Right.
But you can't tell me how to mop it.
Right.
Not and get the results that you want. I'm willing to do these things as I understand them. And so we had a pretty heated conversation about that over a several week period, but we finally found a boundary. I did some creative incompetence one time and washed the clothes, being a nice guy, trying to find the love language, wash the clothes, and I shrank her most favorite and beautiful sweater.
Oh.
And so then we had to have conversations about who does the laundry and how do they do it.
Yeah.
So, And again, is that about being right? Did I do the laundry the wrong way? Or is that about something else? So, I could argue that I followed the directions, I did it the right way, and she came back with the obvious evidence that my shredder shrunk. Obviously, you didn't do it the right way. And we could learn that. Or it could be about what is it you need me to hear? What is it I'm not hearing that you need from me that I will try to accommodate out of my respect for you or my affection for you?
And for me, whenever you get to this place where it's clear that the perceptions are different, and I can say, well, these are just different perceptions. And like you said, do you want to be right, or do you want to have a good relationship? And the way that I usually handle that is that I say, everybody has the right to their perceptions. Those are just what they are. And if you both could pass a lie detector test, then what are we doing arguing who's got the more objective reality?
Well, and when did God say you had the right to determine
exactly
how the floor should be mopped?
Right.
Right. You have a preference. That's the way you would do it.
Right.
I have one. That's the way I would do it.
Right.
And we have to decide. Okay, am I ever going to mop the floor again?
Right.
Or when I do, is it going to be irritating to you, but you're going to be okay with it?
Right.
So.
Well, and because she could say, well, the issue is that there were scuff marks on the floor that are still here. So, and you could say, well,
they don't bother me.
They don't bother me.
Like a classic conversation about men and women about cleaning the house. For most guys, in my experience, it means let's straighten up all the clutter. For women, it's like, let's wash the blinds, let's clean the windowsills, and most guys are like, why are we doing that? It's not bothering me.
Well, and so then what it comes down to, whenever you're talking about these perceptions, it really comes down to what is the emotional distress that it is causing. So I feel,
right.
The most important part of I feel because I want or I need is the I feel.
Yeah.
The identification of the emotion that is being generated inside the person that's talking. And I remember I was working at a treatment center.
That's interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
Because I think the most important one is the third one. Why?
Yeah.
Why does that cause that reaction in me? When you talk to me in that tone of voice,
right.
I feel angry. I want to hit you in the face. I want to run away, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's the tone of voice that my father talked to me in just before I got hit.
Right. Well, so that might be the most important for the individual. For the relationship, I think the most important is the I feel. And I even go into this idea of then we have to use language that are actually feeling statements, because you can't say when you talk to me that way, I feel disrespected. You can't feel disrespected. Disrespect is a thought. It's not a feeling. So the only feelings are glad, mad, sad, or scared. So if you're going to say I feel,
I don't buy that at all.
Well,
I know that's what a lot of the literature says, but like I can feel rejected. I can feel
you can feel rejected,
disgusted. I can feel
which
hurt.
are all rejected
derivatives of the basic four. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. And I don't care if you used rejected or hurt or whatever, as long as it was a feeling word. But disrespect is not a feeling. You are disrespected. You may feel angry because you are disrespected. You may feel hurt because you are disrespected. Okay. And the reason that I say that...
So you're going past the camouflage words to get to the core.
Yes.
Okay.
Because until you identify the feeling, you're not really expressing to the other person what that emotional distress is.
All right.
And so then it's easy to get dissuaded and distracted by the camouflage
down a blind alley.
Right.
Let's debate the camouflage.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what happens until you get to the emotion, which is irrefutable. Right. So if I say I feel disrespected, then you say I didn't disrespect you.
Yeah, it's like I'm not trying to tell you how to drive. I'm telling you I'm afraid.
Right.
Can you not hear that? Will you not protect me from the thing that's making me
right.
afraid?
But if I say I'm angry, you can't refute that.
Yeah.
You can say, well, I wish you weren't angry.
Get over it.
Right. But you can't refute the fact that I am. Right. So it's really important that they drill down to the emotion.
Or they'll say, fine, you're angry at the way I'm driving, but I'm angry that you're challenged me on this. So we're both angry. So what?
Right. So what?
Yeah.
And
Which doesn't progress the
it
conversation.
doesn't progress the conversation, but at least you've gotten to a point where now we're not arguing. And
I
then
want another opinion. Well, you're ugly too.
and then for the individual, the because may be the most important part. If they're looking for some kind of real, insight, then for them that could be really beneficial.
So are they looking for insight or are they looking for victory?
Yeah, yeah. Well, or are they looking to trying to move the relationship back to homeostasis and into a place where it actually functions more effectively?
Yeah. So we start with a conversation about the driving. She's trying to tell me how to drive. He's scaring the crap out of me. And you massage that conversation for a while. You try to clarify it. You try to teach them how to communicate about it, blah, blah, blah. But at some point, you have to pull back and look at the pattern in the relationship. How do we position ourselves for power? How do we position ourselves for affection or safety in this relationship? What's the sense of mutual caring and respect? Can we get back to that as the central focus and goal? Are we behaving in affectionate and respectful ways? Are we behaving in domineering ways, angry ways, hurtful ways? And when you find the pattern, then you can find a place to intervene.
So I, talked about this and taught this for a long time, and then one day something happened.
You had an aha experience.
And it really brought it home. I was doing, back in when I worked in the treatment center as a counselor in a alcohol or drug recovery treatment center, we would do Family Week. And so back then, people were in treatment for sometimes up
28
to
days.
a month. And part of that time was to bring the family into the therapy and have them participate with the recovering person. So
It was always like going to the zoo, wasn't it?
oh yeah, it was an experience.
Yeah.
And so this was actually over a weekend. So I was working a weekend and doing group on a Saturday, and it was close to the holiday. So I think it was after Thanksgiving, but I think it was before Christmas. So probably sometime in December, but it was snowing. And so we were talking in the nursing staff was all talking about, were we going to end programming early because it had started snowing and it was supposed to get really bad. And I was doing group, and so I was doing this kind of communication experience where people would only be able to talk if they were holding an object, and the object was a tennis ball. And then they would pass the tennis ball to their partner.
Or throw it.
Yeah. The partner would have to repeat what the first person said to their satisfaction before they could respond. So I had this older couple, and the woman, who the man was in treatment, the woman was his significant other. She was holding the tennis ball, and she said to him, I really hope it stops snowing soon before I have to drive home, because I'm afraid to drive home in the snow. So she gave the tennis ball to the guy. I said to the guy, okay, can you repeat that to her? And he said, well, you hope it stops snowing because you don't want to drive home in the snow. And I said, is that correct? And she said, yes. And I said, well, I don't think it was. Could we try that again? And so he gave the tennis ball back to her, and she said, I hope it stops snowing soon because I'm afraid to drive home in the snow. Tennis ball goes back to him. You don't want to drive home in the snow. This went on, I'm not even joking, like 12 times. And, finally everybody was getting disgusted. The group was getting disgusted. And I said, well, let's try one more time. And she took the tennis ball and said, I hope it stops snowing soon because I'm afraid to drive home in the snow. She gave the tennis ball back to the guy, and the guy looked at her, and he got this real quizzical look on his face. And he said, I think you're afraid to drive in the snow. And she started bawling. Because it was the first time that she had ever actually felt heard.
So I remember in high school, I was in a speech class. I was giving a speech, and the instructor stopped me, and she said, repeat what you just said. And I said, it was something about Washington, D.C. And she said, spell it. And I spelled Washington. She said, now say it again. I said, Washington, D.C. She said, spell it. We did that, and I thought she was so stupid. I'm like, why? I've already done this 10 times. And then I heard that there was no R.
There's no R.
So that stuck with me forever. But it's that kind of experience where she's not giving me the right way. She's facilitating my discovery of how I'm in error. And now I never say Washington. I don't say wash the clothes. But I grew up saying that. What you're talking about is something from Harville Hendricks called the Imago dialogue. And there are 3 steps to it: mirroring, validation, empathy. And so you say somebody has a turn, and sometimes you use a symbol because people don't pick it up real easy. So if you're holding the feather or the tennis ball or whatever it is, you're the only person that can speak.
Right. And it doesn't matter what it is.
It doesn't matter what it is. And so you speak, and then you hand me the feather, and I say what I heard you say. And then I have
But I have to say, yes, that's correct.
So I have to ask you, did I hear you correctly? And then the third step, because that's the mirroring part of it, then the third step is to say, and while you were saying that, what I understood that you were feeling was afraid, irritated, angry, what have you. Did I get that correctly? And so you just keep going back and forth with that until the initiator, the person that said the original statement, feels heard and validated. And then they get to say, yes. And so I'm not allowed, if you're saying that to me, I'm not allowed to debate, justify, rebut, argue until I've gotten the yes from you that I heard you accurately.
So I'm going to ask you to send that link to me so that I can put that in the show notes, because actually now I'm learning something, because I've never gone the extra step of requiring people to repeat back the emotional part. But for me, that is the most important.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, because he heard her accurately. I want to go home. I want to get out of this because it's snowing. But he didn't hear the fear until numerous repetitions, and finally it dawned on him. And then he was able to articulate it, and she collapsed with relief.
And probably he didn't hear the fear because of his own rejection, denial of his own fear. We're very empathic creatures. And so if she's afraid, then that elicits in me a like response. And for males in our society, big boys don't
cry.
Fear is a sign of
not being masculine.
Weakness.
Yeah.
So, I've been asking those questions for 35 years and never gotten different answers. And that's messed up.
Yeah.
Because that's 50% of the human emotional spectrum that we're told is taboo, and specifically for males in our society is viewed as unmasculine. How are we supposed to feel? So when she's saying, oh, you're afraid, I'm afraid, and he has trouble acknowledging that because now he kind of has an empathic fear response, and he's very much defended against that.
So you're saying men are emotional cripples?
I am saying that. I'm saying that most people in our society are emotional cripples because we have all kinds of messages that preclude us from being able to experience the full emotional spectrum.
So not being in the room, but remembering what you said about the 4 feelings. My interpretation would be that he was angry because what he heard was she wanted to leave. And he was stuck in the hospital to do therapy because he was sick and broken, and she didn't care.
You are blowing my mind with that.
I'm really good at what I do.
I never considered that, but you are probably 100% right.
That's always important to me.
Yeah. It's more important to be right.
Than whatever.
All right. I hope that this conversation was beneficial for somebody. Please, if you are catching us on YouTube, like the videos and subscribe. The subscription button is down in the right-hand corner of the video screen. If you would like to get a hold of us, please contact us through the website where the podcast lives, psychwithmike.com, or you can communicate with me directly at Michael Mahon, MAHON 72 at yahoo.com. All of the music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue, and if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.